My husband and I live in a small, unincorporated town on the outskirts of a bigger city. Although we are almost 50 years old, we are 30 to 40 years younger than any of our neighbors nearby. Most of them have grandchildren who visit them regularly and drive them wherever they need to go. Not so for the man I usually just called Professor. His wife Elena died 12 years ago. I only knew her in brief passing, but she and the professor were one of those life goal type of couples. I loved spending time with them. They were both so witty and clearly still in love. Elena's passing hit her husband very hard. For the past year, he had been battling cancer, and with no bus service in our rural area, and the cabs from the town being very expensive, I ended up driving him to the doctor's. The professor had been in the U.S. since his 20s, but he still retained a charming foreign accent. My name he pronounced as Anne. Usually when he phoned me, he would say, "Good afternoon, Anne." Sometimes he would call me in the wee hours of the morning, in pain, only able to gasp, "Anne." I would drop the phone and run to his house to help him take his meds and take him to the emergency room. He was adamant about not staying away from home. He knew the end was near, and he wanted to go to his own bed. On October 1st, at almost 4 a.m., my cell phone rang, showing the professor's number. When I answered, a strange voice asked, "Anne, Anne." "Yes?" I asked. "Professor?" "No." "This is Maria, and I am taking him tonight." At that moment, I woke up from my nightmare. I was sitting up in my bed with the phone in my hand. My husband and our dog were sleeping soundly, so the phone hadn't really rung. Or had it? I started to call the professor, but if he was managing to get some sleep, I didn't want to disturb him. So instinctively, I got up and got dressed quietly, and the dog and I slipped out into the backyard. I could see the professor's house from here. No lights were on and everything was quiet. I wasn't comfortable though, so I went ahead and dialed. 25 rings and no answer. Damn. I knew at that exact moment that something was going to happen to the professor. I went back in and woke my husband. We walked to the house and knocked. Nothing. At this point, we had to phone the sheriffs. They broke in and the professor had already died, seemingly peacefully in his bed. Because of our incorporated location, any of the chores which would fall to the professor in an urban area were taken up by the neighbors there. So that evening, with the deputy's supervision, the families on our block began to sort through the professor's papers. We needed the deed to his burial plot and any kind of will or link to distant relatives. I looked through the small scrapbook of old photos that was on his stand. There was no cousin Marco from the old country, or nephew Bob from New York City, 1997. It was mostly pictures of Elena and the professor, and their never spoken of a young daughter, Maria, who had died in Oaxaca in 1971.